Hey y'all, I'm Tamaja and welcome to another episode of Rewatch, a podcast where I binge your favorite shows every week. Y'all, it is our last Snowfall episode and we have to spin the wheel this episode for our next show. And this season was so thick, so we just gotta hop to it. All right, y'all, so last season we ended and I predicted a war was gonna start, and as always, I'm right. If I could give season 6 my own title though, it would definitely be called Downfall. This season opener happens literally the next day after the events of season 5, so go listen to the previous episode before this one so you can catch up a little bit. And as always, there will be spoilers, so here we go. In the first few seconds we get like a little Ronald Reagan clip, and if we know anything about him, whatever follows is going to be pretty bad. Basically, he announces the war on drugs, and that just made me know that the police had to be coming up soon. And boom, we walk up to a house and a man is getting home, and there's a literal child just chilling on the front porch, a little girl by herself. It turns out her dad never came home, and this guy's her grandpa. Now, who do we think this little girl's dad is? Honestly, don't even bother guessing because y'all would know, because I didn't know either. I guess they go looking for the dad at his job, but there's police and ambulances everywhere. Now, the next question you're thinking is, why is this relevant? And I'm gonna tell you. The little girl's dad works for Louie and Jerome at the club, y'all. The night before, when Franklin broke in to steal their money, he shot 2 guys at the entrance, and one of them was this little girl's father. And now she's hugging a sheet covered in blood with her father underneath. I think they added this little opening segment to show how the family's war is going to mess with people outside of the family as well. So in the previous episode, Oso got picked up by the DEA, right? Well, now they let him go, and it's because he has to be an informant on Teddy for them, which like the whole season I was kind of confused because why is one government agency trying to bust another? It honestly made no sense to me, and it kind of never made sense to the end either. Also, the whole season Franklin is trying to figure out how to get his $73 million back, and that's like what's driving him or whatever, and I guess revenge too. And because this family war, Teddy's business is also thrown off because he didn't listen to Oso when he said don't get involved with family stuff, and he just didn't want to go that way. And because Franklin stole Jerome and Lou's money, they can't really buy coke right now anyway, so they have to essentially get it on credit. And Franklin is selling to their buyers since he stole their drugs to make whatever cash he can, since he's basically broke too. So since Leon went to Africa, Big Dion is in charge. Franklin goes to him to sell the stolen drugs, and he sells them for way cheaper than he normally would since he got them stolen. So he makes a deal with him, and he sends Black Diamond and Dallas to do the drop. After the drop, the ladies get pulled over by the cops, and by cops I mean former LAPD officer Buck Lee and some of his cop friends with a siren attached to the car. He makes them get out of the car, and with these bad cops is Jerome. The cops make the girls open the trunk, and they steal the money that they just made off of the drop. After Jerome gets the money, he now wants to know where Franklin has stashed the rest of his stolen goods, and the ladies have no answer for him. He is not satisfied by this, so he decides to pistol whip Black Diamond to get the info. Over and over and over again, she and Dallas shout that they don't know where it is, and in all truth, they don't. Franklin just never told them, and he keeps hitting her to the point where she can't even beg him to stop anymore. Dallas is literally screaming that she has kids and begging him to stop, and eventually he gets off of her, and that's when we learn her name, Beverly, but it's too late and she's unconscious. Jerome leaves, and Dallas shouts to the crowd that has, surrounded them now, and they just stood there and watched, and she's like, call the police. So somebody calls the police, and the episode ends. This episode was a good kickstarter to the season, but I hated the way it ended. There's just something about violence against women that rubs me the wrong way, especially in this type of display. And you're probably thinking, but Tamaje, what about when Jerome killed Scully's baby mama? And honestly, I feel like that was different. Sis had a quick death, and she was not powerless or brutalized by any man whatsoever. She was the one hacking up and killing people. What makes Black Diamond's death different, and I'm gonna just say death because she does die in the next episode, spoiler alert or whatever, it makes it worse to me because just before that, there was a scene with Dion, and he was hitting on her. She was the object of a man's desire. She was wanted, and this is the first time we really see that. She's also a tall, dark-skinned Black woman, and we know that they don't get a lot of chances for romance or even like desirability in media for real, so it's changing just a little bit, but still. So it did hurt me to see her going from feeling herself to being beaten to death by a man in a matter of minutes. Moving along, I think in the last episode I mentioned in some of my notes that this show ain't about drugs anymore. And for its final season, I was literally like, what drugs? This show is about power and money, and drugs just help them to get there. So in episode 2, it's revealed that Teddy's girlfriend, Parissa, wasn't taken by the KGB guy at all. She ran away and fell down a hill and hit her head on a tree, and the cops picked her up because I guess she looked drunk because, concussion. And so they threw her in a holding cell. Jerome goes to his wife, giving her a rundown of what happened with Black Diamond and Dallas, telling her that he thinks that he killed her. And in the next scene, Franklin arrives to the hospital and the doctor comes out and reveals that she didn't make it. The DEA is really pressuring Oso for proof that Teddy is smuggling drugs in, so he takes them to the house where they built a tunnel to Mexico because apparently they needed to see it ASAP. Franklin's mom finally sets him up to meet the KGB guy, whose name is Ruben, by the way. It's just so many characters, I don't even learn their names unless they've been around for a few. Basically, they're going to get rid of Teddy altogether. Kane is awake and wants Franklin to figure out where Louis is because he's still bent on revenge from her almost having him killed by Buckley. Later, we meet a new character. It's Veronique's scheming con woman mother. She and Franklin need her help in figuring out how to get his money back. Then the best part of the whole episode is a scene between Franklin and Jerome, and I'm gonna just let you hear it.
He was going nowhere doing nothing. Selling dime bags on a porch, waiting for your bitch to come down. I'll crack your motherfucking jaw. I try to give you something more than a subwoofer and a weight bench. And if you hadn't let yourself get played by that trick you married, you might have. You ever live?
I will put it on the stories because Jerome slapped Franklin and it was hilarious. I rewound it like 3 times to watch it over and over again. After being tired of literally being slapped around, Franklin pulls a gun on him in the middle of the diner and Jerome told him to pull the trigger. He's like, do it, pull it. And Franklin literally just screams at him, literally just like lets out a big in his face. And then Franklin leaves. And then as we see him leave, Jerome notices the little girl from the season opener in the diner with him. And I feel like this is where Jerome's downfall begins, but more on that later. Episode 3, we head to the motherland. And this is our last episode with our sprinkle of black joy in it. And it was beautiful. So Leanna and Wanda are absolutely thriving in Ghana. They've made friends. They're shopping for gifts for friends and family back home. And they learn the origins of the slave trade. And it really affects them enough to the point where Leon realizes that he needs to go back and help his people at home. Wanda isn't so sold on the idea because she feels like there's nothing there for her. He feels like he needs her there with him, so they decide to get married. They have a beautiful ceremony on the beach. When they get back, apparently so much violence has occurred between the two sides of the family, and I like how they gave us peace for a little bit for our people in our homeland, and then we get a mini montage of what happened to them since we've been in Ghana with them, because apparently we missed a lot. Einstein, one of Leon's guys, technically I guess Dion's guys, he apparently tells them that there was an ambush set on Louis and Jerome at a hotel, just bullets, like drive-by style. There was a rumor that Louis sent cops on her payroll to ransack Franklin's house, and later on we see that that's true, and his house is all jacked up. Then some thugs break into Franklin's business office to try to kidnap him while shooting up the place, but nobody was there. Louis' nightclub was hit in a drive-by, and some club goers were murdered outside. While Leon asked what any of this had to do with Dion, Einstein says that Kane sent a guy to kill Dion's cousin at a barbershop. Then Dion retaliated by hitting Kane's boys at the car wash. And the last thing we missed is a rumor of Franklin almost killing Dion while he's in the bathroom stall. And we see Franklin about to blast him, but then the cops walk in before he can pull the trigger. Wanda goes to see her grandmother and takes her the gift that she brought her back from Ghana, and her grandma barely opens the door and doesn't even let her in. Apparently, back when Wanda was a crackhead, she did some pretty terrible things to her, like stealing her prized possessions and even attacking her. Her grandma still isn't over it because, who would be? And she shuts the door in her face and refuses to accept her gift, but they're standing there. She says she can leave it on the door handle, but she gotta go. The rest of the episode is Leon making his rounds and people rejecting his requests for peace and them asking him to choose a side. I love that this connection to his roots has helped him grow so much. He's the only character that I feel like grows throughout the series. Everybody else is pretty stagnant other than that. Y'all, episode 4 was so boring. Oh my gosh, like what a waste of an episode. I guess it was supposed to show us how Franklin has become like more unhinged because he ends up burning one of Kane's cooker's face on the stove because he was like complaining about having to cook the crack. And then the guy goes to Louis and Jerome and tells his location, and they send a kill team to go get him. But Franklin was there, so he helped Kane get out. And then at the end, Leon decides to take their projects back. So he gets into a fist fight with Dion and then cracks him with a bottle to win the fight. And just like that, he's back in charge. Other than those few, violent moments, the episode was whack. Episode 5 was kind of dope. So basically, I feel like the episode was split into 2 main stories. On one side, you see V and her mother running a con. They are in a nursing home, and the Mark is an old man. Now, I was confused until I realized they were in Kansas City. And the only time we've ever been there is for Teddy's sake. So this man is Teddy's estranged father. So V's mom pretends to be an old lady with a gray wig and everything, and she convinces Teddy's dad to take her home. And by home, I mean a random house that they're pretending to be where she lives. They hang out for a little bit, play some music, dance, talk about their families. Then eventually Franklin comes home and meets him. Franklin calls up Teddy and says, "Give me the money or your father dies." And Teddy says he won't do it. And then Franklin is like, "I bet," and stabs his dad in the neck and burns the crib down with him in it, y'all. The other half of this episode is the beginning of Jerome's sad downfall. He tells Lou that he's leaving because he's just, not feeling great. he's just having a lot of anger feelings and all that. And he goes to hang out with an old friend at his auto shop. First of all, the friend like tries to send him away like right off the bat. He's like, oh, we don't really have time to mess with your car today. And then after he gives him like a stack of cash, he's like, well, I guess we have some time. But anyway, the whole interaction is just depressing. Like, and it made me kind of see Jerome for what he is. Jerome is kind of like stuck in the 70s. Like, he still has a jerry curl. He's still wearing like these bright random clothes. Like, he's not really like keeping up with the times in any kind of way. And it seems like he's stuck in like the good old days. And his friend kind of reminds him of that. And I won't say rubs it in his face, but Jerome feels like his friend thinks that he's too good for him right now. And he kind of is. Jerome has nothing. And I think he's starting to realize that. He realizes that he may have money, but he's not safe. He has to have guns in his car. He has to have guards all around. He has to sell drugs just to exist right now. And his friend used to be in the drug business. He did what he had to do. He got out. He got his body shop and he takes care of his family. And I think Jerome was a little jealous of that for sure. Episode 6 was so good. Like, dude, after being ghost all day, Jerome comes back to Louis hammered and he crashes his car into like a potted plant or whatever. And in his drunken anger, the truth starts to come out. He tells her about how he stayed in the game for her and that her greed is what's ruining them. Teddy and the KGB guy, Ruben, they talk after Teddy broke into his crib and found out that he was gay. And then he threatened to expose him unless he stopped investigating him. Otherwise, he'd kill him himself. Louis gets kidnapped on her horse ride and Kane's guy bring her in. And child, they do a number on her. Kane calls Franklin over to show him that he got her. And he watches Kane beat her and brand her. Like, the man literally burns a K into the girl's chest. Franklin leaves her there after Kane essentially says that he's going to, TikTok style, R-word her into submission. Franklin's pissed at her, but he still pages Jerome. He obviously doesn't answer because, you know, it's a little messy right now. But Leon somehow gets a hold of him and tells him about what happens to Louis. So he pages Buckley, you know, to help because he's like her personal security. But he's too busy smoking crack to even answer the page. So many of the problems of the show could have been solved by cell phones. Like, a text would be like, hey, Louis got kidnapped. Meet me at this warehouse. And, you know, things would have been done a lot easier. But anyway, Franklin, Scully, Jerome, and Leon get some guys together and they run up in that warehouse. Meanwhile, Kane has brought in this pimp, and let's just say his guys are about to do some treacherous things to Louis until they hear the gunfire outside. And the guys are out there in a war zone, spraying bullets everywhere. And once they kill everyone outside of where Louis is being held, Jerome storms in and it's just him, Louis, and Kane. And Kane has a gun against Louis' head. He kisses Louis on the back of the head, shoves her out of the way, and he and Jerome start shooting each other. And both men are hit. Louis looks at Jerome and he falls to the ground. Louis screams and begs for Jerome to stay with her, and he dies in her arms, y'all. Now, I've had a feeling that Jerome would die before the end of the series, but I had no idea it would be like this. And although so early, I feel like they could have delayed it maybe like an episode or whatever. But, you know, it's alright. I didn't write the show. The only reason he's ever involved in these situations is because of Louis. They're basically Bonnie and Clyde, and Bonnie always wanted more, or at least that's the story they always try to sell us. And it cost them. Jerome had been on his way to a downfall for a while. He didn't want to live this life anymore, and it just wasn't worth it to him anymore. In the end, he died a hero doing something that he'd do 100 times over, protecting his wife. The wild thing is, I had less notes for episode 6, but episode 7 is like a half page long. So episode 7 takes place immediately after 6. Like, they literally drop Jerome's body off at the funeral home to be taken care of. Then Leon takes Louis home and offers to stay just in case. Then she says something that kind of threw me some questions that I had. When she declines the offer, she says, the war is over, ain't it? And her husband just died, and she's taking it as if the other side won. When in reality, no side won. But like, that was going to be the outcome regardless. A few episodes ago, they were literally trying to kill each other. Did she never think that that was a possibility that Jerome would die in this whole thing? Teddy's ex-wife Julia shows up to his house and she's pregnant. It's obviously not his because we haven't seen her in like 2 seasons. And she talks to him and his new girlfriend, who she knows, and says she always thought that they would be cute together. Could you imagine your ex saying this to your current like girl? She's there to beg him to give Franklin his money back because she and their child are in danger now because he wants to teach him a lesson, and it's, you know, not worth it to her. But like, he don't care about that baby. He know exactly where they were, and he did not care. Anyway, Franklin eventually has to tell his mom about Jerome's death, and he takes her to the funeral home and she says her goodbyes to her brother. And Jerome Leon at this point is going through an internal struggle. He wants to do better for his people. Yet, to make the money to keep his community up, he literally has to poison the people with the crack, creating a horrible, horrible circle. At the same time, his new wife is suffering being around the bane of her existence and struggling because her husband is a crack-dealing gangster. Now, y'all don't come at me, but this is the first time that I realized what motivates Franklin for real. It's not money. It's not family. It's himself. Franklin is a narcissist. It took me 6 seasons to realize it, and the man only truly cares about himself. Jerome literally died, and like you can tell he feels bad, but like only for himself. He's like, my uncle died, but how am I gonna get my money? He even like blames Jerome for his death a little bit. I'm gonna talk more about his narcissism later, but this was the first time where like I started to connect, some dots. Louis, enraged, in grief, goes to see Scully because he's the only person who could possibly understand how she's feeling right now. He wants to know how he deals after losing his partner and his child. She just wants peace again. Then the KGB guy, Ruben, ends up in Oso's house because he wants him to work with him and Franklin instead of the DEA to get rid of Teddy. Then we have Jerome's funeral to end the episode. It was not as sad as I thought it was going to be. I wish they would have had like an open casting because, they always bring just like a little bit of more drama. And seeing a character's face for the last time is significant. And I feel like we missed that. Like imagine seeing him all decked out, his chains and jewelry and his Jerry curl, and his friends leaving him with tapes or CDs or whatever was popular at the time. I think 8-tracks, I don't know. I just wanted a better send off for his character. Episode 8 was just okay to me. All the men say their goodbyes to their families because they know they might not come back. So Oso says goodbye to his girl and the kids he's been raising with her. Teddy proposes to his girlfriend Parissa with his mother's wedding ring. Franklin kind of just expects his plan to work out, so he doesn't really give a heartfelt anything to Veronique. The DEA's plan is to catch Teddy with the drugs after Gustavo delivers them to him. And Oso and Franklin's plan is to have Louis drop Franklin off for Teddy to get rid of, and then they tie him up and deliver him to the KGB. You see how those plans don't really work out. The DEA feels that Oso is lying to them, so they bail on the plan, but the KGB guy is there to kill them and stop it and send Oso on his way. Like he literally stops them in the middle of the highway and sends him on his way. All while this is happening, Franklin is being strung up by Teddy as he's about to dip him in acid. Also, he's got like kind of a noose around his neck, and like when they pan out and we see it, it was a little bit triggering because you're like, you put a black man in a noose, bro? Like, be so for real. Then Oso and Ruben get there, and Ruben's got a gun and makes Oso tie up Teddy. Then Oso and Ruben get into a fight when they accidentally knock over the trash can that Franklin is standing on, and Franklin, starts slowly choking to death. Oso wins the fight by knocking out Ruben because, luchador, and Franklin has everyone right where he wants them. Episode 9 was insane. Louis is on the run from the DEA after Franklin told her very last minute, my dad, that they were coming. She has a Buckley taking her to a house that doesn't exist, and she ditches him on the side of the road after she figures out that Jerome did in fact page him for help after she asked him and he lied to her, and that's why Buckley never came. Franklin has Teddy and KGB Ruben tied up in the warehouse, and Franklin decides he's going to torture his money out of Teddy. First he tries some psychological torture and plays Russian roulette, then eventually he gets an idea from Veronique and heats up some cooking oil on a hot plate and starts dumping it on his chest, like fried chicken chest. Think of that. Eventually, his mother, Sissy, begs him to stop as she faces the reality of the person that she's raised. Teddy, who wants to be free, tells her that he didn't actually kill Elton, that he dumped him in a Puerto Rican prison, and he's still there, so there's hope for them. Franklin resumes the whole torture thing, and he's saying things like, why are you making me do this, Teddy? This is all your fault, Teddy. And then when his mom asks him to stop, he's like, you made me this way. And that's when it solidified the narcissism to me. Franklin is able to absolve all of his wrongdoings because nothing is ever his fault. Like, just think about like all the people that he's killed. Rob was gonna blow it for everybody. Well, Rob was gonna blow it for him, and so he decided to shoot Rob in the back of the head because he couldn't trust him anymore. It's just narcissism. Wow, how did I miss it? Everything is done against him. I also need y'all to hear why Teddy took the money in the first place, because it shows how Teddy and Franklin are two sides of the same coin.
Why did you take my fucking money? It's not your fucking money! My cocaine, and it's my operation. I made you what you are. Everything you have is because I allowed you to have.
Eventually, Teddy gets tired of being tortured and agrees to split the money with Franklin, and Franklin figures that's as good as it's gonna get, so he takes him up on his deal. Teddy, Sissy, and Franklin meet up with Teddy's handler so he can call the bank and transfer the funds. And I'm gonna let you hear that real quick.
Hi. Ed O'Reilly, extension 237, please.
What prison?
Please. What?
Tell me what prison Elton is.
Are you fucking kidding me? I was lying. He's fucking dead. I shot him twice. I dumped his body. Hey, Ann. It's Teddy McDonald. We spoke a few hours ago. Yes, I am ready to initiate the transfer. Password is...
After Sissy is arrested, you can kind of see what I mean about Franklin's narcissism again. Teddy gets shot, and he's still thinking about his money. This man is dead. He's shaking a dead man's body, asking him for the password. He's right here. He's right here. No, he's dead. Teddy ain't there no more. Now is the time to talk about the series finale. Franklin stumbles into a bar after running away from the shooting and calls Veronique and tells her what happened. After he gets off the phone, the bartender pours him a shot on the house, and we see Franklin take his first sip of alcohol on the show. Previously, he usually just gets like a soda or something. He then gets a page from Teddy's handler telling him to hand over KGB Rubin or go to jail forever. And he doesn't even hesitate for a second. He drops him off in the middle of nowhere and doesn't look back. Then he asks Leon for money for his property and Leon turns him down. Brother is full on Delulu, thinking that he can have a legitimate life now, but he decides to go off on Leon and pulls a gun on him. Now mind you, it's like 8 dudes in there with guns already, just ready to protect Leon. So like, that was incredibly stupid of him. Clearly he's losing it. Later, Wanda tells Leon that she can't live in the projects anymore and that she thinks she's going back to Ghana. At Sissy's arraignment, she pleads guilty. Franklin goes to see her in jail and she refuses to speak to him. And then he starts screaming in jail. Why couldn't she have waited for the transfer? And she hangs up and she just goes back to her cell. At home, Franklin gets a visit from the real estate guy he was going to work with, and he's kind of confused about what he's talking about because he never made an offer. And he's like, oh yeah, your business partner, she made an offer. And this triggers Franklin because he did not approve this. When the two of them meet up, she explains to him that she was just fielding offers in case they had to sell. Then he goes off on her as far as putting his hands around her neck, warning her to never cross him again. It only takes one time. That's all I'm saying there. Leon visits Sissy in jail and they have a wonderful heart-to-heart about how she's so proud of the man he's become and how he wants to fund Alton's shelter. She then tells him to get up out of the project and save his marriage if he can. So Franklin has to go to the bank, but before that, he drinks a lot of whiskey. Like, I think it's safe to say that he's a full-blown alcoholic now, or like on his way there. He literally drinks in the car before important stuff. Like, that's a problem. But anyway, he goes there to speak to his banker and ask for a loan extension and that he wants to move over some money. Then here's the kicker. After his request, the banker tells him that Veronique was already here earlier and she basically emptied all the accounts and she took like $800,000. Franklin lies and says, oh, there must have been a miscommunication, and leaves. And he gets in the car and finishes his bottle. And then he goes back to the jail. This time though, it's begging his mother to sign over her house to him so he can sell it because he's broke and she's never getting out of prison, especially because he paid for it. See, again, it's always about him. He starts banging on the window between them, screaming that Teddy should have killed her too, and he has to be escorted out. 3 months later, Franklin is a full-blown drunk and he's trying to get more mortgage extensions, screaming at the people on the phone, how could you do this to me? Again, not taking accountability for his own action. He has a meeting with his PI named Top Notch and he quits. He literally tells him he's not going to look for V and the baby anymore. And as a parting gift, he gives him the location of Peaches, who we haven't seen in like 2 seasons. Franklin finds Peaches like an hour away and he breaks into his house and finds him high and passed out. I honestly thought he was dead, y'all. I thought he had HIV because, if we're being honest, the show takes place in the 80s and, we only got one mention of HIV in the whole series, and Peaches is a junkie, so it kind of just made sense to me that he would have, caught it from sharing needles or something. But Peaches stole $5 million from Franklin and he was desperate for it back, obviously. So Peaches tells him that he's got a safe in the house, and then he starts to reach for a gun on his ankle and Franklin kills him right there. Once again, someone dies right before Franklin can get all his money. After finding some liquor, Franklin calls a locksmith to come crack the safe. As the locksmith is working, one of Peaches' junkie friends comes over and Franklin is forced to kill him and forces the locksmith to keep on working. Once he opens his safe, it's basically empty. Peaches went through about $5 million in 2 years. Franklin makes the locksmith count it and he's like, it's about $1,200. Franklin just tells the man he can have it, and as he goes to leave, he shoots him in the back. Like, I really thought he was gonna let him go. Like, there was no reason to kill him for real. Like, there's 2 junkies in the house and he's not gonna say anything about it. 2 dead junkies in the house, at least really not gonna say anything about it. And he gets $1,200. Then we get another time jump, and this time it's like 2 years. I think this is the biggest time jump we've had. We get like tiny little rundowns about the cast. Louie's still on the run from the DEA. She's been stable hopping and working as a ranch hand, and at her current stop, they protect her. They say they haven't seen her and she just hides behind a wall. Oso's living in Mexico training young luchadors, and he checks his voicemail, and this time he hears that his family has settled down in North Carolina. Another year goes by and Leon is walking down the street. He's not visibly older, but he carries himself a little bit different. He walks up to Franklin's house and holy balls, it is literally in shambles. It's dilapidated with scrap junk, washers and dryers in the front yard. Like, what? And he bangs on the door until Franklin answers. The inside is basically matches the outside. Mess. Franklin is dirty and grimy and drunk because officially that's what he is now, and he's kind of accepted his drunken status. His hair is all patchy and his teeth are rotting out, and he brings Leon in quick because they're watching him, and the they in this case is the city over unpaid property taxes. So the pair go out the back door. As they go walking or whatever, Franklin asks about Wanda and how she's doing, and Leon says she's trying to make it into the music business and that marriage is hard. Franklin says that Veronique called him once just to tell him that he had a son, and that was the last he heard of her. Leon says that he's opened up a free legal clinic to help the people get access to counsel, and apparently this walk has brought them to the liquor store, where Franklin asks Leon for $10. He's only got a 20, and this excites Franklin because now he can get a big bottle. He drinks it on the way back. When they approach the house, the police have arrived to seize the house as they watch from across the street. And then Franklin gives this speech.
You don't understand, yo. I ain't got no fucking chains on me, man. I'm free from all of it. My fucking way, not yours. And not theirs.
And that ends the series. Wow, what an ending. Franklin ends the series the same way we met his father for the first time in season 1. Drunk and homeless. And apparently none of it's his fault. Alright, so best character of the series was Leon. I definitely didn't see this ending coming for Franklin, and it was kind of sad, but it's probably what he deserved. Is this show worth the watch? Absolutely. Would I watch it again? Maybe in a few years. It's a lot, and it's also very memorable, so I don't think I'll need to go back and visit it for a long time. But let's spin a wheel, y'all. Okay, here we go. For our next show, it's going to be Insecure. Insecure is an American comedy drama television series created by Issa Rae and Larry Wilmore, and the show ran for 5 seasons, October 2016 to December 2021, and has 44 episodes. And I'm gonna watch them all. All right, y'all, make sure you're following all the pages, all the social medias. We're at Rewatch Podcast pretty much on everything. So I'll see you next week. Back to binging. Don't try to catch me. Bye.